Oro Origin, Street Fighter. Oro is a popular playable character in the Japanese video game Street Fighter, which has been developed by Capcom. The game pits fighters from all over the world against one another, with different players sporting special moves and abilities. Needless to say, Oro has his specialties as well. The video game gained immense popularity when Street Fighter II brought in Oro, a character with an unorthodox fighting style, during its next release. In today's video, we will talk about Oro's history, his martial arts style, his gameplay, and his dynamic with the other characters of the video game. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. History of Oro. Oro made his Street Fighter debut in Street Fighter III: New Generation. He was introduced as a Japanese hermit who was not only mysterious, but had also been alive for over 140 years. Having mastered the secrets of immortality thanks to his senjutsu, Oro was not your regular old man who was just barely alive. Instead, he was very much a formidable player and opponent in the realm of Street Fighter. He is characterized by his golden skin, thin black hair, crimson eyes that turn light blue amidst battle, and his sealed arm. Initially, he had an exposed right arm while his left arm remained hidden under his reddish-brown cloth. However, this feature was swapped in Street Fighter V, where Oro was given an exposed left arm while his right arm remained hidden under a purple cloth, but more on that later. Either way, the one arm is binded with the help of a magic spell, which means that Oro always fights with one arm. The reason behind this is an interesting one. Oro, having lived a very long life, had grown immensely powerful, so much so that he was aware of the fact that his opponents would never be able to defeat him in battle. Also, being too strong could make fighting boring, kind of like how Saitama from One Punch Man was always depressed because no one could go head-to-head with him, thus depriving him of a good fight. Putting himself at a disadvantage where Oro would intentionally restrain his dominant arm made fighting more eventful for him. Meanwhile, his opponents got a fairer chance, but this did not mean that his predicament could not be changed. Oro's arm was not bound by a curse, it was bound because of his personal choice. This basically meant that he could unbind his arm whenever he wanted. Oro also fought barefoot while being the shortest playable character in the video game, standing at 161 centimeters. He got a more contemporary outfit in Street Fighter V, where he sported a buttoned shirt with a cloud and crane print while rocking shorts, sandals, and sunglasses. Very beachy. The design seemed to take heavy inspiration from Master Roshi from Dragon Ball Z, who was another eccentric aged hermit and a martial arts trainer famous for having trained Goku. Oro occasionally swapped the beachy attire for a more warrior-like costume, with his gray Japanese vest, knee-length kimono, hand wraps, and foot wraps. Oro lived a rich life, with richness meaning life experiences. He had started off in Japan, his place of birth, where he worked as a martial arts instructor. Word on the street was that his ancestors were ninjas. These stories were never confirmed, however, since they were reduced to rumors. In the year 1908, when Oro was about 50 years old, he relocated to Brazil with his friend. Life in Brazil did not go too well for him, forcing Oro to retreat from society and become a recluse. We often get to see a connection between reclusiveness and self-improvement, especially with the latter being spiritual in nature. It is quite common to see characters go off the grid during their training periods, cutting off themselves from the world and embracing isolation. Oro was no exception to this. During this time, Oro practiced senjutsu, an obscure martial art that took him dozens of years to master. The word senjutsu translates to strategy and tactics, but it can also refer to magic. With immense dedication and discipline, Oro was able to become a master of the art. Ever since moving away from the worldly Brazilian society, Oro had been living in a cave in the Amazonian jungle, coexisting with nature. He had also made friends with several animals, most importantly, a dog and a turtle, both of whom he lived with. Occasionally, Oro got back in touch with the world when he visited town. His expertise as a martial artist in senjutsu also made him popular among those interested in the art. As such, many had wanted to be his apprentice or disciple. In fact, Oro wished to find someone he could pass down his knowledge and fighting style to. However, mastering senjutsu was not for the faint-hearted, and as such, all of his students dropped out not long after training under his tutelage. They failed to handle the extreme regimens that would lead to them mastering this niche style of martial art. As someone who wanted to find a successor, all of his students failing was not the best scenario for Oro to find himself in. Continued boredom eventually resulted resulted in Oro leaving Brazil, setting out on a journey atop a jet, looking for the one who could succeed him and embrace Senjutsu. In Street Fighter V, Oro became a part of the playable cast as a wandering hermit. We also got a deeper glimpse into his interpersonal relationships and activities here. For one, there was Rose, the fortune teller who Oro sparred with in order to refine her soul power. She was also the one who gave him the beachy shirt. After their sparring match, where Rose was defeated, Oro spent time talking to his pet turtle, whom he generally held in his sealed palm. Soon, he sensed someone's presence and headed out for dinner with the Indian yoga master Dalsim. Together, they talked about the game's antagonist, Master Bison, whose psycho power haunted the planet even after his death. With people being influenced by his power, the apocalypse remained inevitable. Oro and Dalsim discussed this while sparring, where Oro kept an optimistic mindset. He believed that if someone acquired the power to destroy, they could also be taught to prevent destruction, which was what someone with a pure heart and mind would normally do. Dalsim wanted to know more about this from Oro, but Oro left him hanging as he believed that someone as young as the former should discover these secrets by himself. The two masters greatly respected each other, but Oro considered Dalsim to be inexperienced. Oro has appeared in many a character's story, specifically for Dalsim, Karin, Menat, and Rose. In Dalsim's story, he is first spotted when the yoga master teaches a fire-breathing technique to a policeman named Mahesh in India. Oro tells Dalsim that his abilities are odd and leaves not long after. Oro appears in Karin's story when she learns from Shibazaki, her butler, about the existence of a Senjutsu master who keeps his dominant arm sealed. She finds out about Oro being in India and realizes that this is probably the man who her grandfather had fought for 3 days straight almost a century ago. To find him, she goes to India, where she learns from Dalsim that Oro had already left. However, she continues to believe that both their strong powers will result in them meeting in the future. In Rose's story, Oro meets her to discuss her premonitions, while in Menat's story, he is visited by her as she warns him about the future. Oro is part of Street Fighter V side story, Musings on a Still Night. The storyline here shows us another wisdom-filled encounter between Oro and Dalsim, with them engaging in friendly banter over dinner. They discuss power in the realm of street fighting and martial arts, when Oro begins to loosen Dalsim's grip on devotion. He displays the types of ki and the Satsui no Hado, which is a type of dark power that is used by the game's recurring demonic antagonist, Akuma. Fun fact, Akuma is the Japanese word for devil. Oro and Dalsim continue to discuss how malevolent powers can often be good depending on the intentions of the user. This is kind of similar to the concept of power in general, the one we are all familiar with. A good and easy example would be technology. It has upgraded the lives of people in ways that are unfathomable. Technology also allows for great things to manifest. However, it can be terrible, compromising your personal data and information. Whether it is good or bad depends not on the technology itself, but on who is using it and how it is being used. The same applies to Akuma's Satsui no Hado and Bison's psycho power. So far, it is evident that Oro has a rich life when it comes to interpersonal relationships. Dalsim is a notable character when it comes to Oro's life, as the two masters have great respect for one another and often share the screen together. Another very notable character is Ryu, his potential successor, who he meets in the World Warrior Tournament. Ryu finds Oro weird, thanks to the Senjutsu master's eccentric personality, which contrasts with Ryu's stoic personality. Oro notices a pure heart and great potential in Ryu, believing him to be someone who can not only master Senjutsu in 15 years, but also as a fighter who in the future can fight Oro with both of his hands unleashed. The thing is, even though Ryu respects Oro, he remains uninterested in becoming his student or in learning Senjutsu. Ryu is not the only one who is impressive to Oro. The young ninja Ibuki has also managed to wound him while being one of the very few people who are able to achieve such a feat. The funny thing is, Oro thinks that she will ask him out. He even thinks Rose is in love with him, often wishing for himself to be 100 years younger for her. Other than allies, Oro has Akuma as an enemy, with whom his fight ends in a draw, and that is only because both of them realize that if the two fight each other in all seriousness, both of them will die in combat. Despite being on opposite sides, Oro and Akuma respect each other. Oro's amazing story in comics. Oro has been involved in the comics, being a part of many amazing stories. In Street Fighter III, Ryu Final, Oro tries to get Ryu to be his apprentice. He appears when Ryu takes a nap and robs him of his belongings. When the latter asks for them, Oro challenges him and shows his specialized skills, which Ryu considers to be very impressive. The two of them fight one another, while Oro confesses to being aware of Ryu being in search for the power of his soul. Oro, being a veteran martial artist, already knows about that power, while Ryu remains oblivious to it. Using his personal attack known as the Yagyu-dama, Oro outdoes Ryu in their battle and emerges victorious. Before going his separate way, however, Oro offers Ryu to be his apprentice. In Street Fighter Legends Ibuki, Oro defeats the father of Makoto and his students at the dojo with ease, and subsequently binds his dominant arm to make fighting a greater challenge for himself. Years pass by, after which Makoto challenges Oro to settle the score with the martial artist, as he had previously humiliated her father. She wants to prove to him the power of the Rindoken, martial art that her father had passed down to her. Oro recognizes that Makoto is too angry and agitated to fight effectively, and turns her down, but he keeps the light at the end of the tunnel as he tells her that they might fight one another someday. With no choice left, she tearfully but gracefully accepts it. In Street Fighter V's Darkstalkers, Oro, liking women a bit too much, comes back to bite him when a succubus lures him.
It can't be over!
How powerful is Oro? With his mastery of Senjutsu, Oro has gained full mastery over his ki and his own body, allowing him to have tremendous strength and stamina despite being 140 years old. In fact, it is his Senjutsu that allows him to be immortal. He can also perform telekinesis while surviving in extreme atmospheres and environments. Remember when he left Brazil atop a jumbo jet to find a successor? Yeah, he stood on top of the airplane while it flew. And by the way, jets fly in the lower stratosphere, which is very literally above the atmosphere, and happens to be an area with very little water vapor in the air. Any other person would need a strong moisturizer to sustain themselves in this situation, other than being able to ride a jet as if it is nothing more than a skateboard or a hoverboard. Not Oro, though. He can also release the magic binding his arm whenever he wants to. He ups the challenge for himself in Street Fighter V, where his arm is not just restrained, but it holds his pet turtle and keeps it balanced amidst battle. His eccentric nature makes him an unpredictable fighter, and his short height aids him in positioning and mobility. It is often mentioned how shorter people have a lower center of gravity, and in Oro's case, it definitely works to his advantage. He can make his opponents wrongly predict or read his moves, and often confuses them with his erratic timings, double jumps, and dodge attacks. He boasts the Yanabi projectile in Street Fighter V, which is similar to his Yagyu-dama attack from Street Fighter III. It takes some time to charge the attack, putting versatile moves like the Hadoken at the higher spot in comparison. Oro can also unleash a volley of punching and kicking combos, thanks to the Minomushi. He can pick up and violently throw his opponents with the Manrikatan V trigger, while the Tengu stone helps summon objects to make them collide with his opponent. The super art Kishin Riki shows off Oro's superhuman strength, allowing him to access the dormant strength that remains hidden in his body. Meanwhile, he can release energy and his ki to attack his opponents, much like the Dragon Ball Z characters, obviously not to that extent. As someone who is a combination of both his capable body and mind, Oro uses his telekinetic powers, or rather, the Tengu stone, to levitate objects and use them as an extension of his combo attacks. For a man who restrains his dominant arm to make battle more interesting, Oro is easily one of the strongest characters in Street Fighter. Marvelous verdict. As a character, Oro is a mixed bag, a man filled to the brim with wisdom, which is contrasted by his eccentric personality. Oro is someone who is quite literally a sage due to his mastery of Senjutsu, and yet he wishes to be 100 years younger because he thinks that Rose is in love with him. A man who everyone wants to be a disciple of? Turns out the guy he wants to actually teach is not really interested in learning. But then, this comparison is exactly what makes him so interesting. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.